Hello, welcome to Locked on Sharks, your home for all things chompy boys. I'm JD Young, one half of the Content Boys, joined by Dane Lewis from Locked on Stars because Kyle is off doing Kyle things around the world. So Dane is going to be here to recap a kind of boring, we'll call it a defensive struggle of a 2-1 Sharks win. Dane, how is it going, buddy?
It's going well. I'm glad to be. I think this is my first collaboration with you guys, so I'm excited to finally be collaborating with at least half of the Content Boys.
Yes, too bad you got the bad half of the Content Boys. Kyle, the noted energy guy. But yeah, we'll have a full breakdown of the James Reimer doing James Reimer things and the Sharks squeaking out enough offense again right after we get some fun intro music.
You're Locked on Sharks, your daily podcast on the San Jose Sharks. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Last week we had Seth on, and I think he was a little surprised by the intro music. I don't know about you, like when you hear other host intro music and you're like, that's not mine. Is it kind of weird for you off the top?
Yeah, it really is. I get so used to mine, so when I hear, and that was like drastically different. Mine's like very like hip hop, like heavy, like beat drop type thing. Like that was really cool. It was kind of smooth. So it's
Yeah,
always refreshing to hear another host music.
we went with the funky one. But yeah, the big thing, the Sharks 2-1 win over the Dallas Stars. A game in which James Reimer did James Reimer things, and this I think the Stars had an expected goals all situations at like 3.54, and James Reimer allowed one goal. Yeah, I mean, what was your big takeaway coming in this? I know that Dallas is coming off. This was the third game in 4 nights, and kind of a tough road trip for them. But what was your big takeaway coming out of this game?
Yeah, I think the biggest takeaway from this game, at least for me after watching it, I think you could say this whole road trip is just the cruelty of hockey at times. Just, I mean, obviously, like you said, the Stars with a pretty rough road trip going 0-3 after, tying the franchise record for 7 wins in a row. You could argue that they played pretty well in all those games. I'd say the LA game, there was a little bit of rolling over and die aspect at the end. But I mean, against Vegas, that was one of the best games I've watched all season. Back and forth, high energy from both teams. And even the San Jose game, I mean, I know we were kind of talking before recording. It was kind of a boring game at times, but there were moments, especially near the end, where it got a little more entertaining. There were a few, shorthanded moments or, times on the power play for either team where things got a little dicey. But I mean, I don't think the Stars really did that much wrong in this game. I think they did a lot of things well. Like you said, a lot of good scoring opportunities. But Reimer was doing Reimer things, like you said. And so sometimes things just don't fall your way. I mean, it's just tough for the Stars going 0-3 after building so much momentum and confidence. But, they'll be back at home tomorrow night against the Blues. So hopefully they can get some momentum back against the division rival.
Yeah, and I think for kind of like Kyle and I previewed this game, the big thing was you can't let Dallas take advantage on the power play, and they went over 3 on the power play, and that's where that was a good matchup between the Sharks, the Sharks and the Stars, where they both have very highly rated power plays and penalty kills, and the that I think was the big difference where the Sharks were able to score some goals, 5-on-5, especially with after they switched up their lines. You had Hertl and Meyer, which we've been kind of wanting to see together. And look what happens. The Hertl, that line contributes to both goals this game. But to me, yeah, I think the special teams was kind of the big thing where, Dallas got a lot of chances on the power play, and they had some grade A opportunities, especially with Pavelski, who we will talk about later. And but yeah, they were able to kind of keep that vaunted penalty kill or power play off the score sheet, and I think that was the big difference in the game.
Yeah, absolutely. And I was really interested to see how that matchup would unfold because I think going into that game, San Jose was second on penalty kill and Dallas was second on power play. They might have shifted a little bit, but I think they were both still top 5. So,
Yeah.
Definitely one of those cases where defense kind of gets the upper hand. But yeah, Dallas had some good looks. But obviously, San Jose is ranked where they are for a reason. So, and it had been a while since we had played a team with that good of a penalty kill. So I think that was probably good for the Stars to get, a taste of a team that can then challenge you on the man advantage a little bit. Because I think it had been a while since they had faced a team quite like that.
Yeah, and another thing too. I mean, this game was kind of sneaky important because both these teams are right in that wild card mix. I know. I think the Sharks are 1 point out. They've played a few more games than most of the other teams in the wild card race right now. But like, this could be one of those games where later on in the season where it's like, oh man, the Sharks or the Stars or whoever, they missed or made the playoffs because by a couple points based on a game like this where what I mean? The Sharks, I don't know. The Stars, I don't know what the Stars kind of expectations are going to this season, but like the Sharks have been kind of this like, will they, won't they, especially with like Hertl going, there's a lot of rumors of Hertl being available at the trade deadline and a bunch of other players and or if they might try to make another run with this core. But like, this is one of those games where if you win it and then all of a sudden, you have that kind of those 2 points that you banked against another potential playoff caliber team. So like, what is the Stars' big thing this year? I mean, I know they had their cup run, a couple years ago in the bubble, but since then it feels like they haven't been the same team.
Yeah, and I mean, last season was so weird. I know for several teams, but especially the Stars. I mean, they had so many guys that got injured on that cup run. Like Tyler Seguin was, playing with like basically just his upper body working. Ben Bishop was hurt. Anton Hudobin was going through. I mean, tons of guys. Alexander Radulov, and so I think this season was just kind of like regrouping and seeing if they could, try to run it back because the team's not too different. And if anything, you could argue they're better than they were when they were in that cup run because Jason Robertson wasn't on the team whenever they were in the bubble. And, obviously was a Calder finalist last season. He's added a lot of offense. And so I think, and especially kind of in, the midst of this 7-game win streak, the past few weeks, I think that the team and the fans were kind of like, okay, this is the team we were expecting because the Stars got off to a really, rough start to the season, had a lot of trouble finding some offensive identity, but now that top line of Hintz, Robertson, and Pavelski, they've really, shown up and showed out most games at the LA game and the San Jose game, somewhat excluded just because they were shut down by both those teams. But yeah, I think that's kind of what this team is going for is just to regroup, and the hope is to at least make the playoffs. I think at this point, it's kind of impossible to think we're going to win the Central, just with how competitive it is, and even a team like Minnesota seems to be the cream of the crop of that group so far. But I think this is a team that if they can get into the postseason, then sky's the limits from there because that's really all it takes for any team in hockey. You make the postseason, and then you just got to see what happens because postseason hockey is very, very different than regular season hockey.
Yeah, and especially like Minnesota's playing really well, and Colorado is just kind of lurking, and you're expecting them to just take off at some point. I know right now they're scoring like 7 goals a game, but they have no goaltending. But yeah, I think the Sharks and the Stars are kind of in that same situation where they got some aging guys and they've got some youth guys kind of helping to filter in. But it's like let's try to make the playoffs, and like you said, you never know what's going to happen. So. But what can happen? Help you save some money and get your TV together using DirecTV Stream. Does this sound familiar? You've got one device that lets you catch the game live. Another lets you stream your favorite shows. You're watching sports highlights on your phone. You've got your neighbor's best friends log in for the good stuff. Well, I want to tell you about a simple way to get all the entertainment you love without the hassle and a great way to finally get your TV together. It's called DirecTV Stream, and it brings your live TV and on-demand favorites together like never before. So you can watch your favorite sports, movies, and shows all in one place. That means no more juggling remotes, no need to buy another device ever again, and the best part, there's no annual contract. So get rid of the clutter and the confusion and get your TV together with DirecTV Stream. You can learn more at directv.com. That's directv.com. Compatible devices required. Content varies by package. Yeah, I think, like you said before, that the kind of the big thing for me was we talked about how, well, at least Kyle and I, when we previewed the show, was how Dallas kind of feels like a one-line team, right? That one-line team, it's a very good one line, that Pavelski line, but we kind of felt that the Sharks' middle six might have advantage here, and we saw that especially with the Hertl, Meyer, Barabanov. They were kind of wrecking shop all night, and even that. The Benino Nieto Cogliano, future or ex-Dallas star Cogliano, where you kind of felt like they were controlling a little bit of pace, and that and they weren't getting the best looks all the time, but like you kind of felt like those guys were holding their own. Is that something you're worried about with Dallas, where like if they're going to make a run, do they need some more depth in that middle six there?
Yeah, I think there's definitely an argument there because, and I think there's guys in that middle six that are really talented, and there's a lot of youth and promise. Dennis Gurianov's a guy who's had, I think he played well. He had a lot of really good looks, in Saturday's game, but even on Thursday against LA, despite the shutout. But I mean, you look at guys kind of like Jamie Benn, who's there in the middle, Tyler Sagan, guys that, have been staples of this team for so long, but are just kind of getting up there in age, don't quite play the same that they used to. Sagan's kind of found his footing a little bit as of late. He's been very, very streaky this season so far. He'll go on stretches where he's scoring, you know, 3 goals in a row, like in a game or something like that. But yeah, I think that's just kind of where they're at. It's either like they have guys that are kind of shells of their former selves or guys that are still young and kind of in that developmental stage, like Gurianov or even like Jacob Peterson, who's a rookie this season. But I think clearly shown that he belongs on this NHL roster, despite his youth. He's had some really tough goals go in, and a guy that I think the team likes having on. And then even guys like Luke Glendening and Michael Raffle, who were offseason acquisitions and free agency. They're good quality veteran guys that, have good hockey IQ and play really well, but they're not necessarily going to stuff the stat sheet or be your best scoring option. But they can certainly make some good plays. So I'm curious to see if Dallas makes any moves as far as the trade deadline goes. Really, the only thing I'm hearing about us sending someone out is Anton Hudobin. And I've heard really just Buffalo is kind of the main rumor, but haven't heard too much from that. And I know at one point there was a rumor about John Klingberg potentially getting sent to Carolina. But talking with Jared at Locked On Hurricanes, he hadn't really heard too much on that other than that was just a circulating rumor. And so not, too much idea from at least Carolina who they would send to Dallas. So I'm curious to see if they choose to make any moves about kind of the middle of the lineup.
Yeah, and first of all, I think Buffalo is trying to play 32 different goalies this year. I think that's their master plan, is to see how many goalies they can play. But yeah, it's kind of interesting because it's like Hertl, he's kind of the belle of the prize right now comes the trade deadline, and ever since they've started this home trip, he's been on absolute fire with his 6 goal in I think 3 games or 4 games or whatever, and it's just been especially before that where he was definitely going through a bit of a drought, and the coaching staff talked to him about his attitude and stuff like that. That Hertl needs to have a bad attitude, but just like, hey, you're a leader on the team, you have to kind of be a little bit more positive and stuff like that. And then since he's gotten home, he's been absolutely on fire. And then another guy too, who this year has found a definite resurgence, especially if you're a long time Sharks fan, Locked On Sharks fan, Kyle and I have been pumping the Erik Karlsson tires for a long time. And it's just nice to see where Erik Karlsson he's just back. And it's great to watch Erik Karlsson do Erik Karlsson things. Like, I know the Sharks the Stars have very exciting young defensive, like you said, but just watching Erik Karlsson out there just do Erik Karlsson things, it's great, right? Even as an opposing fan, it's great, right? I'm not the only one, right?
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, that his goal last night, obviously, the kind of the dagger. I mean, obviously Dallas scored after, but Dallas being down more than 1 goal this season has proven quite deadly for the team. So yeah, definitely a guy that, was kind of fun to watch last night. The Sharks in general, I will admit, one of the, teams, even though it was a low scoring game, that I had, more fun watching just because I feel like they were a team that I haven't seen that much. I mean, especially it felt like, with last season, it had been years since these two teams met up. So just not a team that I get to watch that often. But when I do, always kind of surprised just and taken off guard by some of the talent that I just didn't really know about.
Yeah, and there are guys like Dahlin, who's a rookie, he's had a very long path to the NHL between, getting picked by Ottawa and Vancouver, both known for their excellent development process. But, him spending a couple years in Sweden and kind of refining his game, he's done a good job of, stepping into that top line with Couture, and you can see they definitely have some good chemistry. And I think Hertl and the way Timo Meier has been playing this year, where he leads the team in goals, and this is the Timo Meier that we've been wanting to see, especially kind of from their cup run days where he was like, oh man, this guy's gonna be a yearly 30, potentially 40 goal scorer, and then he's had a couple down years, but this is the Timo Meier that we've been waiting to see from the Sharks. And their middle 6 is okay. That third line's not too bad. I wish there was a little bit more scoring punch there, but I think there's a recipe for them where they can play good defense, and if James Reimer continues to play lights out the way he's been playing right now, they have a chance, I think, to make a good playoff, make a push for the playoffs, and really have to force the issue of what are we going to do with Tomas Hertl, I think, coming to the trade deadline, where it's not going to be like, well, do we just trade him and give up, or this team might actually have some grit and something special to it. So
Yeah, absolutely. Very, very interesting. I feel like the Pacific Division in general, kind of like, the top half at least, including San Jose, just very interesting this year because Vegas obviously off to a weird start to the year, but they've kind of found their footing. And of course, Edmonton and Calgary are always gonna do the things that they do. So very kind of interested to see how that division shapes out as the season goes on.
yeah, and like Anaheim's been off to an insane start, which
Yeah, yeah.
nobody predicted, and it's kind of like we like kind of predicted Anaheim and LA, where we thought LA might be the team that where it's like they could surprise some people, but it's been Anaheim. And then, yeah, and the thing with Vegas is you got Jack Eichel just,
Waiting.
kind of looming. He's coming at some point, and
Yeah.
it's really scary with when they get him if everything comes together. But um, before we get into some Joe Pavelski talk, a little hungry. It's Sunday night here. Had a long day of watching football. Might need to grab a little snack to edit this bad boy and enjoy the rest of Sunday Night Football. So that's why I personally reach for Built Bar. So Built Bar, it's the holiday season. You need a protein bar that tastes like a candy bar, but it's even better than a candy bar. Built Bar is filled with so many holiday goodness, rich with decadent flavor, covered in chocolate, but amazingly low in calories, sugar, net carbs, and fat, and high in protein. You get the best of both worlds, delicious and healthy. Built Bar gives you the extra fuel. So if you need to bust down those mall doors, battle all the holiday shoppers, or if you're just standing in endless shopping lines, Built Bar can give you that extra something you need to keep you going. So throw one in your jacket or purse. You never know when you're going to need it. Maybe you're friends with Santa. Well, tell Santa to throw in a few Built Bars into the stockings. With so many flavors, they'll make everyone's Christmas morning a happy one. So check out Built.com and use the promo code LOCKED15 to get 15% off your order. Again, use the promo code LOCKED15 and get 15% off your next order.
Yeah, today's episode, you talk about Sunday Night Football in case you're needing to get any of your betting needs met for Sunday Night Football, which is over, but you can still do that for Monday Night Football. You can do that at betonline.ag. BetOnline has you covered all season with more props, odds, and lines than ever before as football season continues to march towards the playoffs. BetOnline remains your number one spot for all the sports action this season. Head to the new updated desktop or mobile website to sign up today and receive your 50% welcome bonus on your first deposit. Just use the promo code Locked On to receive your bonus. From basketball, football, NHL, boxing, and UFC, right down to your favorite Vegas casino games, don't wait to take advantage of all the amazing offers available for the 2021 season. BetOnline is the fastest and easiest way to bet all of your favorite sports. BetOnline, where the game starts.
All right, since Kyle is not here, Kyle, the noted Joe Pavelski hater, thinks he's overrated, thinks he's the worst player to ever play in Sharks history. No, I'm just kidding. But Kyle dislikes Joe Pavelski, so we get to talk about Joe Pavelski without Kyle going like, So Joe Pavelski.
Yeah,
he's great.
I mean,
he's amazing, right?
Yeah, he really is. He seems to not age. I mean, he's 37 and he leads the team in points right now. Or if that, I don't think that's changed. I think that's right. And if he's not, he's top 3. Despite a roster full of other really, really talented players. And also, I feel like the past 3 broadcasts of the past 3 games, someone has mentioned at one point or another that he's always the first guy on the ice at morning skate or just normal practice, standing in front of the net, working on redirects. And I just feel like you don't see that super often, not just in hockey, but any sport. I mean, normally a guy that's Joe Pavelski's age, that's been in, the league as long as he has, they kind of, they have most things figured out, but there's not a whole lot of, dedication to still working on their craft. But I think that's one unique thing about Pavelski. Not necessarily the flashiest guy as far as numbers or stats all time, but just a hard worker. And I think that's something that Dallas has really benefited from since he, basically stepped foot on the ice for his first game as a Dallas Star.
Yeah, and before he was with Dallas, he's with the Sharks, and that was the thing was Brent Burns out there shooting those Burns bombs and Pavelski out front tipping those in, and you saw that natural chemistry between those two, and it's like I do miss Joe Pavelski. Remember, Sharks fans, it's not Erik Karlsson's fault that Joe Pavelski isn't here. That money was already they had already decided that money was going to go to him. It was re-signing Evander Kane. That's $7 million for 7 years, which I'm sure the Sharks now would love to go back and redo. But yeah, and I think too, at the time I was, I was a big Joe Pavelski. Like Joe Pavelski is one of my all-time favorite Sharks and stuff, but like I didn't foresee giving him a 3-year contract working out really well. I'm an idiot because that contract has been great for the Stars this whole time. He's played outstanding. When they went on their cup run, he was, in the bubble, he was amazing during the cup run. I know, like he had some huge plays, and and I think with Sharks fans, he died for our sins so we can make a cup run. Against Vegas. Literally taking that 5-minute penalty and getting dragged off the ice. I think that's something that Sharks fans I will never forget. But like it's nice to see that he's continued to play well outside of San Jose. And, I hope when his career is done, that he comes back and he gets the full, jersey retired, full treatment that he deserves as a Sharks fan, because, what he means to the Sharks franchise and, being the underdog. I know Kyle hates the underdog story, but like, just a 6th-round draft pick coming out of nowhere, and just like you said, just how hard he's worked to be where he is. And somebody just, he could be happily like, what, I'm not gonna come in early today. I'm pretty, I do what I do, and I'm pretty good at it, but like just tirelessly works on his craft, and that's something to appreciate. Just how, like, especially for a guy for his age, where just how well he's done and for how long he's done it.
Yeah, and I don't think anyone would blame him if he did, take days off or, show up maybe a little, like, because he has been around for so long, and I'm sure his body is wearing down and he's starting to feel the, the mileage racking up. But yeah, such a valuable guy to this team, just in the way he plays, but also I think, just a great mentor to a lot of our young guys, like Jacob Peterson. I mentioned the rookie, but even Rupe Hintz and Jason Robertson, who he shares, that top line with. I mean, those are two guys who their careers are still ahead of them. They're playing great right now, but I think they still have a ton to learn. And they could still, develop and grow in their craft as well. And I think, Joe Pavelski is a great guy to have in that role. I mean, they have other good veterans on the team, Jamie Benn, Tyler Seguin, good guys to learn from as well. But just, another veteran that can be added to this team that, if Dallas is able to make the playoffs, I tell my listeners all the time that, that I think that Dallas has somewhat of a, not, I guess, mental advantage just with all the veterans that they have on this team, even like Ryan Suter, that acquisition in the offseason. I mean, these are just guys that have been in the league a long time and, have seen a thing or two. And like we said earlier, the playoffs are just a whole different beast. And I think, having veteran guys like this on the team certainly go a long way in just, helping get through the grind of those games.
Yeah, and I mean, I think that's where the Sharks and the Stars, they have that very similar DNA, where it's like, you have the Sharks, they have their Coutures, their Burns, their Hertls, these guys, their Carlsons, these guys who've played a lot of big time, meaningful games in the playoffs. And, there's something to say though, especially when, like the Wild, who've very talented, very deep team, but like, they how many one and done seasons have we seen from the Wild? A lot, and it's like Colorado, how many times have they gotten past the second round, where it's like, sometimes just having that chemistry and these guys who've been there and done that, it can make up for that lack of talent, especially in a 7-game series where sometimes it's just a lucky bounce or lucky, one guy's in the right place at the right time to score a goal. So
that literally happened to Colorado in the Stars Cup run. I mean, game 7, Joel Kiviranta scores a hat trick in that game, and no disrespect to Kiviranta, but he hasn't done too much since.
Nobody's heard of
but he's forever a legend in Dallas, Texas, because of that game 7.
Barclay Goodrow scoring in overtime against Vegas. Barclay Goodrow will never ever have to buy a drink in San Jose ever again, because so Dane, this was a lot of fun. Tell the people, where can they find you, where they listen to you, all that fun stuff.
Yeah, Locked On Stars is on your favorite podcasting platform as well as on YouTube. Just crossed 100 subscribers on there last week.
Congrats,
super
buddy.
Cool. Yeah, yes. I appreciate that. We just started about 2 months ago on there, so love the growth over there. But we're on those places. You can find me personally on Twitter, just at Dane_Lewis, and of course the Locked On Stars account, just at Locked On Stars.
And of course, you can always find the Locked On Sharks on Twitter, Facebook, Instagram at Locked On Sharks, where we post all of our stuff there. You can subscribe wherever you get your podcasts, Stitcher, iTunes. We're pressing records here soon, so get your vinyls of previous Locked On Sharks episodes. You can find me at my fry hole. Kyle is at Kyle Demetrius. And we'll be back tomorrow to preview the Kraken game, which should be fun. So, Dane, as always, thanks for coming on and hanging out with me on your Sunday night. So,
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks, JD. I had a great time. Have a good night.
all right. And we'll catch you guys tomorrow. Goodbye, friends.